Hi guys, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Clangin and Bangin with Mikey, episode 195. And today what we want to talk about is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, man. I just had a conversation with a good friend of mine. Literally just got off the phone with him, maybe like 20 minutes ago. Is that we got to decide whether we're gonna stick around in the situation that we're in, or if we're not. What I mean by that, man, is like you gotta recognize the signs. You know, whether the person's being manipulative towards you or not. And there's different, types of manipulations, and there are some things that I looked up that I didn't know was right. Um, One thing that stuck out to me was the changing of expectations, right? Usually when people do that, they try to control something, whether it's you, your emotions, the situation, whatever it is, right? They're trying to do something to control it because they have more control over themselves. When that happens, it's like, okay, it's like, yeah, um, you can do what you want to do, to a point, but it's like you have to make the decision. It's like, do you sit there, you twiddle your thumbs, or do you just leave the situation where it's at? And what makes it more difficult is when um, the individual. It doesn't matter if it's a friendship or platonic relationship or romantic relationship, right? Romantic relationships are tricky because it's like, okay, you're most likely sleeping with the person. You know, you're doing X, Y, and Z with an individual, and if he or she changes expectations on you, they're like, yo, like, okay, like, how am I supposed to move with this? Because we doing this or we doing that, yada yada yada, whoop to whoop, right? And so when that happens, you have to think for yourself and be like, hey man, he was saying this or she was saying that, and it's like, how long are you gonna stick around in that situation? You know, how long are you gonna deal with somebody who most likely tells you that they don't know what they want, or is it just things of that nature, right? You don't end up in a situation like that, on accident. It's always planned out. I don't care what people tell you, right? Whether knowingly or unknowingly, there's always a plan to it, right? And a lot of times when people tell you, "I don't know what I want," they're basically telling you, "I know what I want, and I know it's not with you." Um, Simply because of how they interact with you, right? We've all had that story with you, where the girl or the guy tells us, "Oh, I don't know what I want." Man, like, no, like, yes, you do. You just don't want it with me. You know what you want, but you don't want to deal with, you don't want to deal with what comes with, you know, dealing with that other individual. Whether the other individual is um, intense, trying to make you change for the better, uh, hold you accountability is big with a lot of people, man. It's like a lot of people love to play the victim, love it. Um, but on the flip side, though, is like you have to take accountability for what your role in the situation. You can't be brainwashed and think like, oh yeah, you know what, it's never my fault. It's always the other individual's fault. And it's like I've been around people like that, and trust and believe me, it's not hard to figure out why they are the way they are, right? And it's frustrating because you can see it, and they can see it, but they don't want to make the change. And that's when you just gotta leave people where they at. You don't. I'm not saying that everybody who plays a victim or everybody who manipulates to a point, because everybody does manipulate. It's like let's keep that a buck right now. It's like, you know, everybody manipulates to get something or somebody that they want, right? You know. Now the degrees at which we do it is completely different. And I think that's the most important thing to realize too is you have to be able to understand, okay, like I said before, do you stick around in this situation or do you leave? Or you don't want to twiddle your thumbs and do X, Y, and Z because it's like you don't need that shit, you know. And I think it's imperative for a lot of people to sit there and really be one with their emotions and be like, okay, like, how do I go about moving with this, or how do I do this, or how do I do that? Because at the end of the day, another partner of mine and said, man, you got to protect your mental health. Like, don't ever get it all twisted to where you forget that you have to take care of you. He's like, yeah. He's like, don't ever get it twisted to the point where you think you have to bend over backwards for somebody who's not doing the same for you. And that's the one thing with me, man. I'll never chase anybody. I'll pursue them a little bit, but I'll never chase them. You know. Back in my younger years, I had this really weird thing where, not weird, but I had this thing I would do. I'll get phone numbers, and I would never call them. I'll wait till they text me first or call me first, whatever, you know. And if they never did, gave them like 2-3 weeks, okay, cool. Delete the number and move on. Now, was that a form of manipulation? Yeah. But I'm manipulating myself as to not engage first. So there's that. It's also important to realize, you know, who you are, what you want, and how you want to go about getting it. That's the main thing. Like you don't want to fuck anybody over. You don't want to misuse people, and you definitely don't want to hurt nobody's feelings, because it's like hurt people hurt people. That's the truest saying in the world. It's like hurt people hurt people, and I think that's extremely important to realize that, especially when shit doesn't go your way or when shit goes, you know, left instead of right, and you're like, yo, it's like, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, yada, yada, yada. Why is this shit not working out? It's like, chances are, bro, because you dealing with a person who doesn't want the same thing you want. A lot of motherfuckers want the attention. And some people will tell you that. And when they tell you that, you're like, okay, like, if you want attention, then you have to tell this individual, like, yo, I'm not the one for that. You know, if you entertaining X, Y, and Z, you know, amount of people, because it's like, okay, like you can do all that, but don't get mad when, you know, people start treating you a certain way. And the same thing goes for girls and guys. So it's like, I don't care what the fuck you say, bro. It's like, at the end of the day, how you project yourself is how people perceive you to be. You know, and that's what it is. It's like dealing with girls who are promiscuous, right? Like those are always funny, man, because it's like they'll sit there and play the victim, and I'm like, man, you realize that the only reason this dude is trying to holler at you because you're doing X, Y, and Z. That's the only reason, you know. Stop playing the victim, because you out there perpetrating a personality that's not 100% you. Or is it you want to sit there and be like, oh, all this other shit, and it's like you can't, because what you project is how people are gonna perceive you and how they're gonna treat you. You don't sit you don't get to sit there and nitpick on how somebody treats you when you're projecting that a certain image of yourself, right? It's like how I'm gonna use it as an example. How people look down on strippers, right? Because look at what they do for a living. They get naked for a living. And in that particular arena, it's a very slippery slope, because you're dealing with fast money, fast people, and this overall just people just they don't have the best intentions for you. And I don't mean the strippers, I mean the people that patronize these clubs, right? Now I'm not saying that that you shouldn't go to the strip club and blow some steam, whatever it is, spend a few dollars, whatever, do your thing, right? I think that's important, to realize that what you do has a profound effect on who you are and how people perceive you. Like, again, I'm just using that stripper example strictly as an example. Just because that's what somebody does for a living doesn't mean that that's who they are. That's just what they do, And it's important for people to understand that, because you don't have the right to judge people off that, Some people may question the character, whatever it is. Yeah, okay, cool. I, for one, I knew a couple strippers back in college that they paid for their tuition, just off dancing. I don't know what else they did. Maybe they did a few extra things. I don't know. I do know that it's like what every fall and every spring this shit was paid off for. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a thing, man. It's like you have to do certain things to get to where you want to go, and it's like, okay, like this may be my situation right now, but it doesn't have to be the end all be all, right? Especially, and to piggyback to my other point too, it's imperative that you understand that it's not cool to use people too. It's not cool to sit there and involve other people, or try to manipulate the other person into thinking that, oh, well, it's more than one girl, it's more than one guy. It's like, no, it's like if you want a triangle, triangle, man, it's like, go draw one. You know what I mean? It's like, don't go messing around with other people's feelings and emotions. Just simply be honest. It's like, don't waste their time. And I think that's what a lot of people do with manipulation, man. It's like they want to sit there, they want to be, oh, well, you did this, you did that. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, but what did you do? A lot of people love to talk about boundaries. A lot of people love to talk about what you did to influence their behavior. But it doesn't mean that they're innocent in it too. Everybody wants to talk about, yeah, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, like, no, it's like there's always a reaction to the action. There's always an antecedent to the consequence. And you have to be really careful with that, because some people will try to flip that, and they will try to make it seem like you're the issue, when in reality, it's not you. It's you being mentally clear, have the clarity to be like, oh, okay, like this shit don't serve you. And instead of you wondering why, instead of you wondering what it is, you just leave it alone. one of my favorite quotes of all time is like comes from Tupac. Tupac said, "Man, you can either be busy put you know putting the broken pieces back together, or you can just leave that shit on the ground and walk off." What do you, and how I interpret that quote is, instead of you trying to figure out why it broke and and trying to put it back together, just leave it alone. It's like, because even if you do put it back together, you're still gonna have to deal with the imperfections in it. You know, it's still gonna be something that it is no longer perfect because it has cracks in it, right? You know, and I think that's the important thing, man. Is like, you have to understand your self worth. You have to understand that, okay, while you may have feelings for this person, while you may have, maybe took it a step further, slept with them, whatever it is, I don't know. Um, if this person is wishy washy about you or leaves you confused, that doesn't mean that he or she likes you. That just means that they don't know what they want, and it's up to you whether you want to be in that situation or not, because now you're affecting your mental health. It's what goes back to what my partner told me. He's like, you have to make sure that your mental health is always in check. I'm not saying don't deal with your emotions. I'm not saying ignore them shits. I'm not saying pretend like that shit's not that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you have to understand that everybody's not worth a seat at your table. Yeah, everybody deserves to eat, but motherfucker, that don't mean that they gotta eat with you. You know? And that's the consequences of being a people pleaser. That's the consequences of being nice. People will take advantage of you. And then you're left wondering, like, what the fuck did I do to deserve this? Or X, Y, and Z, all this other shit, right? And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. It's not something that we can get better at. It's not something that, I take that back. It's something we can get better at. Something that a lot of us don't want to put the work in to get better at. And I think when you fail, not that I think, I know when you fail to put the work in, you get the results that you get with the work that you did. It's like, take for instance, right? Bodybuilding. And I'm always circle back to this because it's true. Sometimes you can follow, the diet plan to a T. You can do your cardio, do your reps, do all that shit, right? Train with intensity, all that shit. And sometimes your body just doesn't respond. That's when you're like, okay, I did everything right. Something was off, because if I'm doing everything right, I should have got this particular package. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, man. Is like, if this up here isn't right, then none of this shit is gonna work. And I've had a lot of people be like, yeah, I want to do a bodybuilding show because my ex cheated on me, this and this, and I'm like, okay, cool. But did you take the time to, deal with your emotions? Did you take the time to understand what happened in that situation? Why he or she cheated on you? Because there's always a why. Believe it or not. Whether people want to admit it or not, there's always a why. So with that being said, you can't sit there and be like, oh, it's all their fault, or it's never not my fault. Nah, because if it was never your fault, you would never get left. Let me say that one more time. If it never was your fault, you would never have gotten left. Think about it. If you're always being left, The problem isn't them. The problem is you. You know, and that's where boundaries have to come into play. You know, that's where boundaries where you're not gonna sit there and play my emotions. You're not gonna come in and out of my life whenever you want to. Um, you're not gonna sit there and come, you know, and do all this shit that you're doing because, nah, it don't play over here. It doesn't, and that's that. You know, we have to sit there, and that's a difficult conversation to have with somebody. You know, I don't care what aspect of the, you know, what tier of you know relationship you're in. That's just how it is, right? And I think that's a something that a lot of people don't realize, man. Is like if you lack boundaries, you're gonna get the same experience over and over and over again until you make the appropriate changes. You know, until you make the changes that you want to happen, because you have to be the change that you want to see. Again, like I said before, you know, if you're always getting left, the problem isn't them. The problem is you. You know, or if you're always coming back to a situation, is because whether you love the attention, whether you do X, Y, and Z, and that's cool. It's whatever. You can love the attention, but never ever at somebody else's expense. Don't sit there and play with people's emotions, because when you do that, you end up creating a situation that's, you know, that's contentious. You know, and depending if the person is emotionally intelligent enough to understand, okay, cool, you know, let me just holler at this person one on one, and I'm gonna say what I gotta say, and then that's it. I don't sit there and go back and forth with people, man. It's like, because once I apologize, dog, to me it's a wrap. Okay, I apologized. Either you gonna take that or not, you know, or what you can do is, you know, keep bringing it up and watch me fade away. Because if you constantly bringing shit up all the time, that tells me one thing, that you don't trust me. And I'm not saying me personally. I'm just saying overall. I'm just saying if somebody's bringing up the same fucking behavior, same thing. It's like if somebody keeps bringing up a past situation that y'all have moved past and this and that, and it's like, and it's not on no joking shit, right? I'm saying this every single time, right? Like if they bringing this shit up, I'm like, if that's such a hindrance to you, then why are you here? A valid question. Because why would you be here if that was such an hindrance? Like you don't get to, sit there and play both sides of the fence. Like you can't have somebody's attention and say that you love them and do all this other shit, but constantly remind them of what they did one time. Well, that's not love. That's manipulation. Yeah, that's love on a contract. You know, and I think that's extremely important to understand that, because it's like when people manipulate you like that, or when they try to do that shit. Now, granted, you know, me, 95% of the time, I'm fucking around with people. That 5% of the time, I'll let you know. You know, be like, yo, not right now, change the subject. Can we move on to something else? I don't feel like talking about this right now. Like, I won't sit there and entertain the disrespect. But on the flip side, I've been in situations where I thought the other person was joking and they were dead ass serious. But instead of them saying, having the boundaries and fucking sticking to them, they want to play both sides of the fence. I'm like, you can't do that. It's either you gonna be 100% on the boundaries, or your boundaries don't exist. And that's what it is, man. It's like you don't get to play both sides of the fence and then play victim too. Because like I said, like if you gonna do that, then that's just manipulation. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. You know, and after a certain period of time frame, you know, you know what you're doing. You know, and I always say everybody knows what they're doing after the age of 25, because that's when your frontal cortex is fully developed, right? True, but it also comes with experience. And if you lack the experience, whether it's in a relationship arena or having to deal with your emotions or having to be emotionally available, it comes to a point in time where you just have to realize, like, yo, it's like, if I'm doing the same shit, getting the same answers, and I don't like the answers to the test, then I gotta change, because you can't keep doing the same shit and wondering why you getting the same responses. You know, like, you don't, like, that's not something that you